God, don't give up on me yet. I know I'm not your best bet, but I'm trying. Don't give up on me yet. And God, don't leave me here alone. I know I need to grow still, and I'm trying. Don't leave me here alone. I know I've come so far, but I've got so far to go. And with this brand new scars and this broken heart, it's hard to really know if there's a reason and if I'll ever see it. But I wanna believe it. Don't give up on me yet. Ooh, don't give up on me yet, God. Oh, don't give up on me, God. Would you give up on me? Don't give up on me, God. Oh, don't give up on me, God. I know I worry sometimes. Don't give up on me, God. I know I doubt you. Don't give up on me yet. Oh, yeah. Don't give up on me, God. Don't give up on me, God. I know sometimes I'm ungrateful. Sometimes I'm ungrateful. Don't give up on me, God. Whoa, I know sometimes I doubt you, God.
Yesterday, Saturday, September the 14th, after the mass shooting in Nelson Street, hours after, in the afternoon, myself and two other persons went to Nelson Street. We wanted to be of comfort to people. We wanted to pray. We went there primarily to pray, primarily just to touch people, hold their hands, and just to pray in that environment. And as we walked up to the door of where the incident occurred, where the mass shooting occurred, where several persons were taken to the hospital, we saw some of the victims who got shot. We saw them there in the community. They were back out, but there were still others in the hospital. We saw, we heard of the stories of the different people who got shot. We saw the community there. You could feel the heaviness in the community as we walked. But as we walked up to this door, the door was closed on us walking up to it. But then as we stood there to pray, it opened. And as it opened, we saw a broom, and the broom, the person was kind of behind the door, and they were pushing out blood. And so the picture that you're seeing here is that same broom that was there pushing out the blood out of the Majestic Bar. And I tell you, it was, people stopped in their tracks. People were walking up and down the street, and they stopped to pause. It was so solemn. And I remember my knees feeling very weak. You could also smell it in the atmosphere, smell the air. Because it was so much, and it ran down the steps of the bar, And then if you look at this other video, you will see that it is actually flowing in the streets. And in the streets, look in the gutter. What you see in the gutter there, it's blood flowing in the streets, flowing in the gutter. And that blood it flowed in that gutter all the way to Fairchild Street. And it was, to me, it was symbolic of us thinking that, oh, this has happened up in Nelson Street. I don't have to go up in there. But the same way how that blood flowed from Majestic Bar on Nelson Street into Fairchild Street, I'm saying if we don't come together and do something, it's, this thing could flow right out of there and come right into our homes. Right into our homes where we're at. As I'm doing this video, there seem to be some other shooting in St. James. To wake up, my Barbadian people, my fellow Barbadian people, we have to wake up and realize the seriousness of what this means. Some people say, I shouldn't have anything to say about it because Jamaica is worse, right? Barbados, it's like one parish of Jamaica, okay? So what's happening in Barbados is way too much, and we are not going to be able. We can't survive in this climate. We must do something about it. We must.
Good night, Barbados. Good night, Caribbean. Good night, the world. I want to start tonight with scripture. Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea. Though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her. She will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar. Kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice. The earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars to cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Good night, Barbados. Good night, Caribbean. Good night, world. It is a very somber evening. Very, very somber evening. Somber evening for me, everybody who's on. Very somber. As most of you would know, Cecilia, and everybody else who's on. If I don't get to call everybody's name tonight, you bear with me, right? But I appreciate you being on, and we're doing this thing together. I thank you for those of you who made that suggestion of us going into the community. CG, I want to thank you for the work that you are doing. I want to thank you, CG, being the beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Mystic Angel. Thank you all. Thank you. As you know, that I had gone into Nelson Street the day before, on Friday, the 13th. Myself, Lumumba, and Pastor Steve Skeet, we went into Nelson Street a little after 7:30. And we went from Nelson Street, Wellington Street, and back to Nelson Street. And as we were coming out of Nelson Street, Lumumba said to me, He pointed at the Majestic bar and he said, you know, when I lived close here, close to this area, I used to sneak out and come to this establishment. It wasn't, you know, it had a different name and so on at the time. And we laughed, the three of us laughed, and we walked out of Nelson Street, not knowing that by the time I woke up on the 14th, the next day, there would have been a mass shooting inside that bar. Someone would ask the question, what would be the likelihood of you going to Nelson Street the day before and choosing that right there, that area, that is where we want to do the solemn walk. Anybody ever asked that question? When it occurred, I said, oh my goodness, because I remembered we had a list of all the hot spots, and there were other places there, and people were saying different place in Chapman Lane, different places, and but we chose that one. After praying about it, we chose that one. And I'm telling you the story like this because I want us to understand the power of the unseen and how much God wants to help us. And I know we see, for if you remember who I said went in to Nelson Street with me, was a Rastafari, Lumumba, a serious Rasta, and a pastor, and myself. You see what I'm saying? So when I'm talking here about God, I'm not talking about one, you know, one religion or one church, or, you know, I'm saying that there is a higher being, and we will need to, as a country, there are practical things that we're going to do. But I'm also saying that we're going to have to turn, and we've got to connect with what is higher, whether it's there or in here or whatever your understanding is. Say a prayer for Barbados, because when we prayed is when we felt that we were to go to Nelson Street and Wellington Street for the solemn walk. We left there and we wrote the letter to the police with all of the streets and where we're going to turn and so on and so forth, time, and I dropped off the letter at Roebuck Street. So when I got up in the morning and I heard, I was shocked. I just as I am now, I was like, oh my goodness, you know. And I started to remember some of the faces, the people we met there, some of the young men, and so on, and wondered if they were safe, you know. And I called, I called the police. I called them. I called them. And I said to them, I want you to understand the person I spoke with. I won't say the name. I said, I want you to understand that, sir, we are still coming. We're still going through Wellington Street and Nelson Street. We will. And he listened to me. And I said, sir, if we don't do that, we are given into fear and we are turning over parts of Barbados, you know, to violence. I've seen it happen in my country where I'm from. I've seen where I try to, when I get home to Big Lane, Central Village, Big Lane, right there in St. Catherine, that the taxi driver doesn't even want to drive in there. And I'm saying, I said to the police that there should be no place in Barbados that we as citizens that we can't go to. Not 1 inch. And we can't stay away. And so I bowed in my, after I got off the phone, and they explained to me, well, I don't give the permit, the commissioner does. And I said, well, if you're in a meeting and they're discussing about the permit, please let them know what my thoughts are on it, and so on. I'm giving the police directions. But I think he understood, and we prayed together. I prayed for them, because it can be easy for the police as well. And I said in my heart, I said, I have to go to Nelson Street today. This is the same Saturday. I've got to go. And we went in the afternoon. I went with some other persons. I don't want to call everybody's name at this point. And we went there to pray, to comfort people, to hold their hands, to give them a hug, to look them in their eye, to say, we are with you, to say to those who we told we were coming, to say, we are still coming. And we walked into Nelson Street. We walked in praying quietly. And we went we saw the bar and we started to walk towards the bar. The door was closed. And as we got close to the bar, standing up, starting to pray, we saw the door open. And as I said in the video, there was that broom, and the broom was pushing out the blood mixed with water. They were cleaning out the bar. And as you look deep into the bar, you could see the blood all the way up underneath the different furniture, the different things. There were lots of bottles, that they had in there, Heineken, all kinds of bottles, but just stains of blood. It's going to take them a long time to finish cleaning that bar. And you could smell the rawness in the air. As people were passing, they said, oh my God, we could smell it. And people stopped. You saw the different characters, those young ladies, that some of them looked as though they work at night. And they were passing, and you could see they stopped and they came together in groups. There was a couple of them, I don't know if they knew people in there, but they huddled, they were in a group talking. And then there were 3 little boys that passed by. They none of them is in high school. They're probably class 4 and down, or class 3 and down. And 3 little black boys, and they stood there and they were watching the blood being pushed out. And somebody said, one of them said, look, that looks like the parts of somebody. And I don't know what it was, but that's what the children said. And they started to, among themselves, the 3 of them, they were talking about the people who got shot. Think about that at that age. We're going to say the oldest is 10. Let's give him 10 years old. And that's what they're walking in their neighborhood. And that's what they come upon. And that's the conversation that they're having as they're standing there at the door. As I looked at them, I thought, what is going to happen to these 3 young men in 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, having gone through such a traumatic experience and seeing blood being pushed out, not the blood of animals. This is not where you killed some cows or, black belly sheep or anything. This is people. And one of the little boys, he said, my belly hurting. I can't watch this anymore. My belly hurting. I'm leaving. And the other 2 still wanted to look. And then I touched his shoulder and I spoke with them of the importance of making right decisions and, just talk to them as a mom. And then the little one, one of the other younger ones said, my belly hurting too. What I mean is that it's turning their stomach to it's upsetting them. And they left. As they went, I prayed over them as they went. And we then, walked around, shook some more people's hands and so on, and encouraged and comforted people and let them know we're coming. We will be there. And as we were walking out is when we saw the blood in the trench running out of Nelson Street, and it went all the way to Fairchild Street. And it occurred to me John King song, blood running in the street like water. Remember that line in the song? I would love to send that video to John King. And if John King is listening, or anybody who knows John King, we want you to come and walk with us on Sunday. We need you to come. We need to go in that community on Sunday and bring healing and life and strength, and shake a hand and look into the eyes of people and let them know that we see you, we understand, we're connected to you. And we left there thinking the same way how that blood ran from Majestic Bar in Nelson Street onto Fairchild Street. It's the same things that is going to happen if we don't stop the bleeding. It's going to run till it gets into your heights and terrace, and where I live and where you live, and over our walls, over very high gated communities, and over fences, and into, God forbid, into our homes. And so I know this is not the Barbados that we are all accustomed to, not at all. And so we are going to do many things in the natural. On Sunday, we are getting out of our beds, getting out of our homes, having our lunches early, and we are going to go out. We are going to wear whites. And I saw a little quote. I can't remember if it was from um, Dr. Martin Luther King, that says, darkness cannot drive out hate. Only light can do that. And the violence is stemming from someone offends somebody, and it turns into anger, it turns into hate. Darkness cannot drive out hate. Only light can do that. Darkness cannot drive out hate. Only light can do that. And when we go into Wellington Street and Nelson Street on Sunday, we are bringing light. We are bringing light. Yes. Everyone, let's go. The police will be there with us. God will be there, his angels with us. We will go in with light. It's very important that we look at people as people. We touch people. We shake a hand when we go in. We hug someone. We connect with the people in the community. Bring a donation of non-perishable food items. It's not just prayer, it's action. There are elderly people who live in these communities as well. Brings a non-perishable food item or items. We have someone has donated their vehicle so that when we bring it to the location, that we can just place it on the in the vehicle. If you want to go and you want to buy, you want to spend some money on that, you can do that, this week, and just keep it and bring it with you. You don't have to walk with it. We will have the van there, a vehicle there, that's just for the non-perishable food items. Okay, so we're going to ask you to have that, please, because it's a practical side to what is happening. And love is not just in giving a hug and shaking a hand, but it is making sure that people, are okay, and at a minimum that they have something to eat. Okay, so we want to do that. And this week we plan to go back in. I told them I'm going to come back again, and we're going to go in. I don't go by myself. We go together as a group, and we're going to go back in in the week before you get there. Okay, but please don't change your mind, Barbados. Don't change your mind. Don't say I'm not going now. I was there yesterday. I'm going back this week. let's go together. Yeah, let's go together. At this, we're going to stand for the national anthem. It's very tear jerking tonight, this one. Yes. Think before Nigel is with us, and before Nigel comes, there are 804 of us on here. If you're not driving, can we just take a moment of silence? Moment of silence as we reflect on what has happened here in Barbados over the last 2 days. The number of deaths. All were not homicides, but the number of deaths and accidents and just killing and death. Can we take a moment of silence, please? Good night again, Barbados. Good night. Together we can do this. We can. I see I have my first guest here, Mr. Nigel Newton. Good night, Nigel.
Good night, Marcia. My phone was a bit. Phone was on my. Well, my mic was on mute just
Yes.
now. Yeah,
Yes.
so I am on now, and honestly, I am almost lost for words. How can I describe this situation in Barbados? And what can I say? What can I say? It is tragic. It is deplorable. It is as though Armageddon has reached our shores, and we are now in the midst of the Battle of Armageddon. The level of crime and violence in Barbados is not accidental. I don't think it is accidental. I think this is deliberate. I think it is deliberate. It's now the main plank in the destruction of black manhood in Barbados. And the extreme gravity of crime, criminal activity among the youth is evidence that the ethos, the Barbadian ethos that I grew up in and that most of us are accustomed to has disappeared. And young men now are engaging in activities that we never dreamt of as boys growing up. I can only say it is extreme, inappropriate behavior, the way we are behaving in Barbados, or the violence among young men is extreme. Now, previously, the destruction or efforts to destroy black men and black manhood came from external forces like conquest, invasion, conquest, but it is now something that is growing among us as a people. It is growing among us as a nation, and it is troubling. It really is deeply troubling. And what it is saying to me and to us Barbadians is that we as a nation, we as a people, we have lost our capacity to inculcate in the youth a structured moral consciousness. This is part of another presentation I was preparing for you, but the events brought it forward, okay? And let me explain what I mean by a structured moral consciousness. A structured moral consciousness is the ability to perceive that a social situation involves a moral dimension. It is the awareness that the consequences of one's actions for the concerned parties is a morally pertinent issue, and the ability to think of potential consequences. And I want you to juxtapose that with what has been happening in Barbados for the last 6 months or so, and what transpired today. The absence of a structured moral consciousness. They said that a moral consciousness is part of the cognitive process, the ability to reason, right? It's part of the a part of this cognitive process in the mind that tells whether an act is morally right or morally wrong.
So, Nigel, let me just pause there and ask you a question. You said that it is a breakdown of structured moral consciousness. Can you um, break that down? How does that work in a family? How does that breakdown occur in a, say, in a family setting? Let's look at the black family. How is that? How does that occur in the black family?
Well, that is easy. Previously, the Barbadian household was under the supervision of grandparents
Mm-hmm.
and uncles and aunts, cousins, everybody. We lived together as a family. And therefore, the family and the community, they were all cooperating in making sure that young people were taught the right values,
Yes.
uh, behave in the right way, conduct themselves in the right manner. The community, I remember as a boy, character and integrity and being
Mm-hmm.
truthful and being honest, these were things that were valued among us.
So,
But
Mr. Newton, how did your parent teach you character and integrity? And then let's look at that, and then let's look to see what is happening in our families. So let's go at the family, because we're talking about structured moral consciousness being broken down. And I want everybody who is on. We have almost 900 persons on. I want you to use the comment section and to answer the question as well. How were you taught character and integrity in your family? Think about it as a child. So the question is on Mr. Newton's question. How were you taught that within your family?
okay, when I was a boy and I would have taken home something that my parents could not account for, like
Mm-hmm.
say a pencil, even a common pencil, I took home a pencil that did not belong to me, or something I took home, my parents would want to know where I got it from.
Mm-hmm.
How did I come by it?
Mm-hmm.
And if I could not give an account of it, or if they suspected or they realized that it, you know, it did not belong to me, then I would have to take it back. I would have to return it from whence it came. I could not enter my parents' house with something that did not belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that way, honesty was taught, integrity was taught. You
Mm-hmm.
could not be seen or found with anything that your parents could not account for and
Mm.
that they would not have. So, therein, character building and integrity and honesty, these things were instilled in us
Mm-hmm.
from
When we were
young.
growing up. So let me ask you something, um, Mr.
Newton.
Newton. As you're growing up, I mean, I'm sure you got into fights at school, right? Did you get into any fights at school or church?
No, I never got into any fights as such. I mean, I was the victim of a bit of bullying at school
Okay.
and so on, but I never really got into to fight as any fights as such. Okay, because in fact, I remember there was a time when my older brother, um, he was being chased by some others in the community, and he just ran for his life, so to speak. And at that time, I think at the time there was a place we call the shop at the corner. A group of men, including my father, they were there in that shop. and they saw my brother running for his dear life. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and those who were chasing him, their father and grandfather, they too were also in the shop. And my father looked out, saw what was going on. The others looked out, saw what was going on, and realized that my brother was being chased. Okay, and the others who were chasing him, their words were, well, we can afford to do it because we know when we go home or when our parents go to your parents, we will get satisfaction. So they took advantage of us, so to speak. But we never really pursued or got into any fights
Any
because,
fight? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, I wanted you to finish what you were saying. I didn't realize you weren't finished. I'm sorry.
Right. That is an answer to your question. Okay. But in terms of a structured moral consciousness,
But
this
before you go on to that part, because I think that the reason I'm asking you this, because we want to break it down so the people at home that they can follow along and understand, because we're talking about structural moral consciousness. And I ask about the fighting because most of us were involved in some fighting, whether we are being bullied or we are bullying people or people are we're just in a fist fight, you know. And at that time, the question I want to ask you, Mr. Newton, and everybody who is watching, did it occur to you that, listen, did you ever imagine yourself killing somebody, like literally, literally like killing them dead? Mr. Newton, that crossed your mind?
that was not part of our ethos. We never thought of any such things. In fact, we never knew about guns. The only thing we know was a stick or a rock, as people say, a rock stone. And we might throw a rock occasionally, but thinking about killing, but that was the far, that was the farthest thing from. We never thought of anything like that because the community taught us to value and respect each other, respect ourselves, be honest, have integrity, care for each other. And so that was the ethos in which we grew up, then at least that I grew up in.
Yeah, yeah. Let me just read some of the comments here. Somebody says, my elders laid down their expectations. Any odd items they know they did not provide had to be returned, or anything damaged belonging to others replaced. So we are
Exactly.
talking about, you see, and this is the reason I wanted us to break this down tonight. And if we're going to really, if this is going to be, apart from praying, we're going to have to be practical, right, Mr. Newton? We've got to be
Indeed.
practical, right? So we and then somebody has something here that said we were really afraid of the police. All of these things, we had a godly, we had a good dose of what it is, reverence for older people, for the elderly. We don't talk back to the elderly, right, Nigel? You could talk back to your
Exactly.
parents.
No, you couldn't. You couldn't. You couldn't. In fact, in my home, my father insisted that we speak appropriately. You know, um, it, my father was rather strict and exact, and we had to be on our best behavior at all times. In fact, my father used to tell us quite a bit of stories. I don't know if anyone in the audience, the viewers, would remember the story of Brer Rabbit and Brer Lion.
Uh-huh.
Do you know that?
I remember it. There were lots of
Okay,
different versions, but yeah.
right. The idea of Brer Rabbit and Brer Lion is that the lion wanted to eat the rabbit, but the rabbit was smarter and always outsmart the lion.
Yes.
The moral of that story is that you are responsible for your own protection. You see, and we have to protect ourselves, and therefore we also have a duty of care to others to protect them as well. So the whole community cooperated and ensured that young men and young ladies behaved in the appropriate way and avoid bad company, avoid misbehaving, avoid doing the things that would displease the adult.
Yes. Let me just read a couple more of these comments as we go through. Kamar is saying, for one, disrespect of elders, our teachers, our neighbors. There was zero tolerance for that. We shuddered at the thought of speaking what they call bad English. Right. That you can't speak that in front of your teachers. We respected the teachers. We respect, and so this is why I wanted us to break it down, because sometimes Mr. Newton, we do that a lot on the show. We look and we see what the government isn't doing,
Yes, yes.
right? We look at what the government isn't doing. But let's start right now in the family. Let's start talking about mom and dad. And I know all of it is still connected to the government, but I believe that there's some things that we can do as a people. And it is going back to what Nigel is calling structured moral consciousness being built up and established firmly in the home. Let me just see if there are any more comments. Ramin says, my elders laid down the expectations. Right. I read that one. That was a good one. Monica
Yeah.
is saying the same thing. You couldn't carry home nothing that old people didn't give you. You had to take it back. Right. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And somebody says here, Easy D saying, yes, children were taught the moral values from young. You should not steal. You should not tell lies. That sort of foundation was laid in the child's mind. And so, yeah. And
And I
so,
think
yes, go ahead.
I think I think we have lost that. I think beginning in 1964, when TV came to Barbados,
Mm,
and we were exposed. Because I remember, as a student at community college, um, I did a paper on the impact of television
mm-hmm.
on Barbadians. I have it here somewhere. I don't remember the exact title now because that was a real. But the point is that from the time television came to Barbados and we got exposed to uh, the North American culture, the whole works. There
Mm-hmm.
was a gradual um, there was a gradual diminishing of our value structure, our value system, and so forth. We abandoned or negated our Barbadian ethos, and we began acting and behaving like the people, the unreality that we saw on television. And I think
But some
that
people
is
would
the,
say, though, Nigel, that television, though, has brought so much good to us here in the Caribbean. They would say that us learning to stand up for our rights, all these different things that we learn from television. We learn how to even how to keep our homes, and we saw nice things that we liked, and all kinds of things. People, and we Sesame Street used to educate a lot of people. How about that? I mean, is there any good that TV has done for us?
of course, we have learned quite a bit of good things from television, but how is it that we have the propensity to emulate the negative
Mm.
and to glorify the negative, right? How is it that that is happening to us? Oh, okay. You see, um, cultural cultural penetration is part of the problem. We are, we take in the cultural, or we adopt the cultural norms or the habits and behaviors of others
Yes.
and neglect our own, so to speak. We have vacated, as I said, and we have lost that capacity to inculcate that structured moral consciousness that our grandparents and our parents instilled in us when we were children. There is a breakdown in our society. We don't want to admit it,
But there
or
is
we are ashamed to admit it,
a
but there is
shame.
a breakdown.
You are so right, Mr. Newton, and I want to go a little further tonight. I see Mr. Murray there, and I'm going to beg him for at least 5 more minutes. And Nigel, we have to bring you back on because this kind of discussion I think is very, very important. Let's have an honest discussion about it. And I want to ask everybody in the chat because we're talking about all of us here. I have three children. Nigel, you have children. People who are on, you have children. Okay? Some of us have
Yeah.
two, one,
Yeah.
two. Some people have 8, right? Enough
Right.
children. We have all of us. There are almost 1,000 of us on here. And between all of us, we probably have about 2,000. We produce 2 children each. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So here's what I'm asking all of us. What is it that I did wrong, that you did wrong? The society is the way that it is right now. Look and see what is happening. You see the picture with the boys and the guns. I don't know if Dave just bring up the one that we weren't too sure if we want to show, but we don't see the guy's face. It's going to just show that video because it doesn't have any sound, if I remember. Look at what's happening in our society right now. Right? Where did we go wrong in your own family? In your own family. Think about your own children. Some of you your children are now grown and they came out and they were fine. What about the grandchildren? Look at this screen here, everybody. This is Barbados. It's not another country. Let me take the comment off. I want you just to watch this screen here, guys. These are our boys from our country. These are our children. Yeah? They came, they said, oh, those down there. We all contribute. What have we done wrong here? Think about your own family.
In this regard, I cannot say, or I would not say, that we Barbadians have done anything in particular wrong in terms of those guns that I see. How did those guns get into Barbados?
That's another question, though, Nigel, and it
How
is.
they got here?
But hold a minute. That question, though, Nigel, is part of what I'm asking. Remember, our leaders, they're from our society. They're not people out there. They're part of us. Whoever brings in the guns, they're part of us, and that's why I'm asking the question. I'm asking that question, Nigel, because these children come out of a home. My children are not out there with that in their hand. But somebody's child is out there with that in their hand, or somebody's grandchild is out there, or grandchildren out there.
How did we get here?
You see what I'm saying? And we could always, because sometimes I do it as well. We start to look outside, stop and look inside. Right? Look inside our own homes for a moment. Can we take a few minutes and just think of our own homes? And it could be neglect of children. We're working too much. I don't know what it is for you.
Well, that is part of the problem as well, because we have become so busy going after the material. Okay, we are going after the material things. We seem to think that, in fact, money, power, prestige, all of those things are more important now than taking care of family. Now, that reminds me, it is a difficult situation that we are into, but I would like to draw attention to a quote from, if I may not order it, but let me see. It's something I was trying to bring into the picture here from Socrates. Why do you care so much about power and money and fame and so on, and not the greatest improvement of the soul? I think we have neglected that area, and hence our failure to inculcate that structured moral consciousness. I think that is where our weakness lies.
Structured moral consciousness. Well, Nigel, I mean, we could go on and on and on this topic here, but we're going to have you keep, at different times. I'll give you a call and we come and you see just one terminology and how long we were on the one terminology and how much came out of it. And I think the people appreciate this, the breaking it down and getting into it, because there's a lot of meat into it. But Nigel, thank you so much.
You are most
Okay,
welcome.
somebody's saying, okay, hold a minute. Somebody's saying here that they don't like the way I'm trying to lead the speaker to your narrative. Let him speak. And yes, I understand that. And Nigel understands what I'm doing. Nigel understands what I'm doing. But point taken. But Nigel, you thought I wasn't letting you speak?
Repeat that again.
You thought I wasn't letting you speak?
Not really. It is just that I have so much to say, and the situation is such a complicated one that it calls for deep analysis.
Yes.
You see, and we don't have time on the show to go into the deeper meaning and implications of the concepts that I am raising. But in truth and in fact, we Barbadians have failed to inculcate the value system that is necessary, those values that made Barbados the gem of the Caribbean.
Yes. Well, thank you, Nigel. And as someone realized, I was trying to make sure that we all understood what you were saying. So I am breaking it down. But next time that you come on to that person who is concerned, he'll be able to go into it a bit more. Okay. So every time we're digging a little deeper. Thank you so much, Nigel. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
God bless. Bye-bye. Folks, I tell you, yes, Easy D, I like it too. I like that Easy D saying, I like the term structured moral consciousness. Correct. And we were able to break that down tonight. Yes, very good. Yes. Now, the elders failed in their duties. A lot of us don't want, you see this here? This is what I want, where I want to get us at. Stop. It's not every time we are going to point fingers. Imperator, that's honesty. That's honesty. Elders, a lot of us elders, we failed in our duties. But we will not like to accept that. But I think that's one of the first places that what we need to start at. Okay. I'm gonna, just before Mr. Murray comes, I'm gonna just play something for 2 minutes. I know that a lot of you weren't here when we prayed it, and it's kind of like a prayer. And I just want to play it again. Thank you.
God, don't give up on me yet. I know I'm not your best bet, but I'm trying. Don't give up on me yet. And God, don't leave me here alone. I know I need to grow still, and I'm trying. Don't leave me here alone. I know I've come so far, but I've got so far to go. And with this brand new scars and this broken heart, it's hard to really know if there's a reason and if I'll ever see it. But I wanna believe it. Don't give up on me yet. Ooh, don't give up on me yet, God. Oh, don't give up on me, God. Would you give up on me? Don't give up on me, God. Oh, don't give up on me, God. I know I worry sometimes. Don't give up on me, God. I know I doubt you. Don't give up on me yet. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Don't give up on me, God. Don't give up on me, God. I know sometimes I'm ungrateful. Sometimes I'm ungrateful. Don't give up on me, God. Whoa, I know sometimes I doubt you, God.
That's her prayer, and we're going to be praying that throughout the night. Mr. Murray, good evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, ma'am. Good to be with you again.
Yes, sir. I was tempted to bring you into that conversation, but I know if I did, we were not going to be finished.
But I would like at some point to maybe engage him in certain. I'd like to be able to do something about social change at
Yes.
some point, right?
Yeah.
It's important that people put things in context. So on that occasion, but I want to say the reason why I chose my topic for tonight as crime never takes a holiday or sleeps. Crime never takes a holiday or sleep. And it arose out of the events over the weekend in Nelson Street, that bloodbath. That really brought home a lot to me. And because I put it in some historical and social history context, where it's been said at one time that the gun is now the tools of trade crime. In other words, just like
Can you
how
repeat that? Repeat what you said?
the gun or guns are tools of trade. In the same way that a carpenter would depend on his saw, his chisel, or a surgeon on his scalpel, or the doctor on his stethoscope, these are considered the way to get the job done in crime. And I also reflected on the kind of weapons that were used as I was growing up. I think it's a fascinating thing. When I was growing up, 50s, 60s, particularly 50s, 60s, yeah, such guns in the commission of crime were. Have you ever heard of a bull pistol? Violent crime, a bull pistol? A bull pistol is like a bull cow, a male cow's penis that will be dried and hardened, and you get beaten with all that. Or a cow skin, which is a plaited leather that you beat a cow with. And then there was something called a grain. A grain was a long piece of iron which fishermen would use to shoot fish when they're looking for fish. They shoot them with a grain. And then a billfish beak, where you take the beak from a fish and you remember break it off and sharpen it and turn it into a tool to stab people with, right? And then there's something called steel knuckles. You know where steel knuckles? It's like rather than put on gloves, you put these steel and they wrap around your fingers and use that to give added impact. And then it was knives and scissors and whatnot. I know they're guns. So the technology changes with the society from time to time. And so what we are saying, or we are now in the latest aspect of technological change as it impacts crime. And when from my research, I think they said that the forensic anthropologists say that but having examined a skull, they think that and dated it, the first murder they could find evidence of took place about 400,000 years ago. And they did that because I had a hole in the back of the skull. You know, there's a scientific way of dating stuff that you could go, I forget what the test is called now. You could take it through a process that would got to give you a time frame as to when it actually happened. So they found a skull that dates back 400,000 years. So in other words, crime has been with us all that time. As a matter of fact, crime is a universal. They say we have religion or food or music or education. Crime is every society in the world has a form of crime. And none has been able to eradicate it. Obviously, there are different types of crime, the different severities of crime. And just to put what I will say in context, I'd like if you could go to the first slide, the definition of crime for me. That'd be very useful. Cap, the first slide. Do you want me to read it, or you?
Oh, this side. Yeah, we're waiting on it. Definition of crime in sociology.
No, there's
Right.
one before that.
Okay, it is an unlawful act considered punishable by the state. In other words, an offense harmful to the individuals and society as a whole.
Right. Okay. And in sociology, it talks this slide to it says that. Read the next one in sociology.
So, the definition of crime in sociology: actions that cause harm and violate society's mores, values, norms, and laws.
Right. And that being so, because it's a universal, happens all over the world, each society defines what is serious crime, is the small crime, misdemeanors, minor crime, and it's more severe crimes like murder and whatnot. And I want to just say thank you very much for. But apart from that, the reason why crime exists in every society is because it's organized. From my readings, I deem it to be the best organized business in the world. Which will help explain why we get guns into Barbados and other things, guns and drugs. And not only all over the world, to me, they have the best distribution network in the world. That no matter where you are, no matter how many law societies and agencies trying to stop, they can always get their items in because crime exists as a business because it's sort of fulfill a need. There's a need in society for some people in society for things that are illegal. So crime seeks to fill that illegal need, demand and supply. So there's a demand for a certain illegal item, and there's where crime comes in, organized to satisfy that demand. So that's why I deem it the best organized business in the world. I explain how there must be people, it must be well organized that we can get guns into Barbados, drugs, or maybe only catch minor parts of the whole thing that they come in routinely all over the world. So we're really fighting an international battle for ourselves. And I want to thank you. So it's organized, it's a business, it's there to make profits like any other business. And in that regard, I want to thank you very much for bringing in Zico John. Because Zico John, in his last presentation, where he outlined his life and his behavior, how he got involved in that in criminal activity, then he got out.
Yes.
He was able a personal experience, and he outlined. We in Barbados, okay, before we go there, we in Barbados for a long time have been a semi-denial gang. I remember around 1992, Minister Q Simmons, I don't remember his name because he was the first named Minister of Justice. We never had a Minister of Justice name before. He said, Minister Q Simmons was a very good agent, very community-oriented man, started trades. They used to have a camp, a day camp, did a lot of good community work in Barbados. But he denied that we had gangs in. So from then, Barbados authority never really accepted. So much so that I think we had to feel that what happened elsewhere, what's happening in Jamaica and Trinidad, wasn't happening in Barbados.
Yes.
Right? And we denied it. And I think we are paying the price though for that denial. Even we saw the blocks. I was on the blocks. This young man, that much do, having fun. idle. All they want is a job, give them something to be all right, and probably smoking. But
Mm-hmm.
what Zico was able to show that there's an organization in block. There's a structure. There's a hierarchy. When we talk about his leadership, how he became a leader, right? So there's a lot more going on among these
Correct.
gangs
Yes.
that we realize. We thought they would just get, and they would, but they're part of the network of business, but that is crime. Until we see it in that realization. Like for example, I still have no idea how many um, gangs you have in Barbados. I've heard about some. I've heard some locations, etc. But I feel for people to fully appreciate the crime situation around them, because all over Barbados now. How when you heard Zico talk about territory, you talk about the symbols,
Mm-hmm.
the slogans, the colors they wear, the handshake. So it's a whole subculture that is going on that we are not appreciated because we have not been acquainted of what happens in that sphere internally. Zico was an observer part. He participated in observing, therefore he could tell you certain things. But we normally get our comments from outsiders who have not been on the inside, like
Mm-hmm.
him, right? So to me, that gives the best insight into what really is happening in the gangs, like before, right? Um, like remember some weeks ago there was a video that made the rounds on social media of somebody who think got they were from Jordan from St. James.
Mm-hmm.
I think the surname was Murray too, but they were not related. You remember there's a picture of a ritual going on over
Yes.
the coffin. Somebody in uniform with a sword and making gestures and going through ritual. What did that mean? I would love to talk to Zico, explain these things so when people see them, they know it's not just idleness, but these are all part of the ritual that we have created, the ceremonies, right? That we,
Mm-hmm.
to demonstrate the uniqueness, the distinctiveness, the vision, the image of each block, each gang, or whatever, has its own telltale symbols, etc. And I'd love for him to be able to explain what do all these things mean. Um, and, 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 and I feel that Barbadians should have an idea of this thing. So when they see activities around them, they can know what's happening. If they have to pass on information, if they do not understand, they cannot observe, decipher, make sense, and decide, well, I will tip off the police that something constant happened in my group that day. They don't know. So it might be happening right under their nose because they have not been educated by the police and others. We should know where all the gangs are. You don't need the details, but you should be aware. So and what their peculiarities are, so that when you see them, that will
Mm-hmm.
help you to understand what is happening. For example, I would like, for example, ask John Zico if if he had been threatened by what he said, has he had any repercussions? Or he gave some insight stories that I'd never heard or read of in Barbados before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, has it exposed him to any danger? Has he been threatened, his family?
None
Uh,
that we're aware of. None that we're aware of.
okay, but that is very comforting. Because remember some weeks ago too, there was a young man on your show, and he spoke with a mask.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
Right. So here's Zico now talking exposed, and he spoke at meetings, and he's in the mark. So I'm just concerned about the state of hope that everything is all right with him still.
I think, I mean, Zico has left for so long now. He looks young, but he's left there for so long.
Okay.
And I think he feels that he's no longer connected to that. If you look at it's a younger set of people now, although you do have some in their 30s, but he's left it so long ago.
What I would love to know,
But we're good,
do
good to have him on here to answer.
yeah. For example, has any of them or will any has or has anybody lived to draw the equivalent of national insurance? When if you stay in the system long enough, do you get a pension? Do people look after you, your old age, your family? What rewards? We can see the retribution and the punishment given if you violate the codes or whatever. But what happens if you stay in, you live long, does it produce a long enough person that they can draw and sit back and relax and retire? Or it's a fascinating study area of activity
that is interesting. I see where you're going with it.
Above all, what about females? And what roles do females play in? Because there's another subject I'd mentioned about. I want to at some point discuss what roles do females play in gangs. There might not be the soldiers, the one who go on the street and do things and indulge in trade. What roles are there females, and if so, what are their roles? And if so, why do they get their roles? They're not from all. They're not exposed to the hurly-burly of the activities that we see, right? Is that a deliberate policy, right? Because I know there's some people. There's a term which I'll mention or which I will deal with in detail another time. Hybristophilia. That is HIBRISTOPHILI, hybristophilia, and it explains the. Sometimes you see a very pretty girl, well dressed, all dolled up, and she's walking with a fellow, and the way she's showing, and he's just rough and whatnot. And you want to say, well, what was she seeing him? Because the two don't look compatible. Two different worlds, right? And there's a science called hybristophilia I mentioned about, which expresses that they're actually people, both male and female, who are attracted, who are physically, emotionally, and sexually attracted to persons who are involved in crime. It's a real phenomenon, in the truth. As a matter of fact, that's what helps to explain. Remember the book and the movie Bonnie and Clyde? Right. That helps to explain that syndrome. Where there are people, it's a psychological state that you go through that brings about this attraction for people in crime or whatnot. So I think that where the guns are concerned, I think that I am yet to feel. I'm sure the police are doing it very well, very well best. But I feel that by now, the Prime Minister starts, what was it, July or so, when she talked about this new crime unit, that was a serious crime unit, which she was getting technical advice from Britain about sandwich unit. We need update. I mean, the commissioner of police was on TV tonight, experienced things. But apart from him talking about his operational stuff, the Prime Minister come back and based on those plans, how far advanced are they? What have they done? So that we get a feeling, I think what is missing in the society, the lack of feeling that there's a strong presence on the ground, there's a pushback. I talked to some people on the phone today, especially females, are very, very scared.
They're what? I didn't hear you.
Very frightened, very scared. Right? I mean, and things need to be done. A press conference will not allay that fear. A press conference will just recite numbers. You, Marcy, your role to show the excerpt we show from the visit to Nelson Street, Wednesday, etc. That they are doing more to give people a feel of comfort and support, because you are bringing the human side of it. You are making a people center. You are empathizing with people. They're sharing your experiences. You are describing very graphically what you saw and heard and said. That so people identify with that, but people do not identify with just plain statistics.
Statistics, correct.
We need more. We need to take that a bit further down and let the police come. Have they increased their community policing? Are there now more people on the ground than before? Right. So that we know what is happening. So what we're doing to say, guard the society, because like I've said before, government's first responsibility in any society is to provide security, and safety to its citizens. That's the most, not building schools, creating jobs, providing health, housing. Because none of those other things will come about or will be safe if you don't have the basic safety and security in the society. And therefore, we need to be sure um, what is happening in society in this regard, and that will give us a better feeling. We will therefore be able to prepare ourselves psychologically, build trust in each other, trust in the police, be able to give the information that is needed to fight this phenomenon that we are in. It will not go away. The society, just like if you corner any animal, and if he's threatened, it will fight back. I've always felt that, in my estimation, societies are like organisms. If they're threatened, they have what they call inbuilt resilience. They want to survive. They want to live. Darwin's survival of the fittest. That kicks in. A society must begin to defend what we consider to be right and desirable. Some of the things that you and Mr. Newton spoke about tonight. Uh, and begin to, it will not happen at all, but it must be consciously done in a structured, organized way, with a philosophy, with all that's prepared for it. Otherwise, the schools must be part of the whole system. By the time a child goes to school, 3, 4 years old, his personality is basically formed. If that child at home is not exposed to values, a sense of right or wrong, development of a conscience, respect authority, obey your seniors. If that is not there by the time they get to school, the teachers should not be and will not have time to instead that ending because they have to do another process of teaching them lessons, of educating them in that sense. But the basics, socialization and social education has to start the mother and the father. The woman, when she's pregnant, she has to take on that role. In the same way she goes to a prenatal sessions at the polyclinics, etc., and to get good information about the things she has to do to maintain her pregnancy and keep the baby healthy and whatnot. Before, during, after the birth of the child. A similar thing has to be done about the socialization of children, the phases they go through, what you must look out for, etc. I'm one of the biggest debates going on in the world now, United States, etc., Europe, Australia, the cell phone, where they're now beginning to move to get to you. They're thinking about banning cell phone from children, especially at school. Having given create the impression that the technology itself. Now remember, man always creates technology. Technology does not create man. So the technology is meant to serve man. But we have gone into era where we've let children a cell phone 2 and 3 and 4 years old, 5, 6 years old. They get in there, they master it, they get all kind of, and now it destroys their psychological, their intellectual, their emotional development. For example, a child learning to write a piece of pencil and a paper, learning to write O. A piece of paper, not doing it on a tab. Where it holds it in cursive form, where it holds it in his hand. And it begins to write letters O, and it forms an A. It's engaged every aspect of his physiological and his psychological, emotional development. But when you do it on a tablet, or if you read it on a tablet, it does not bring out or create or develop or stimulate you as. And I think that's the mistake. That's why we begin to see such poor results in maths and English and what, because that phase that you are engaged in writing, learn to write all the letters after that, writing the numbers, spelling, that is lost, and that is being reflected. Children are not being taught. In fact, what I learned when I went to school, that teaching a child, when you get a child a block, I say A for apple, that is considered reader. B for a bat, that is considered the early stage of readers. So all that counts in developing the cognitive skills of the child.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Murray. Truly appreciate that. While you were speaking, a couple persons sent in some comments by WhatsApp. And this person said, Marcia, as a single mother, I have to go out there and work to provide for my children. When my employer tells me I need to work late with no extra compensation or my job will be at risk, what can I do? So this parent is dealing with the breakdown in the home. We're talking about we were talking before about the structured moral consciousness through Mr. Newton. She says, but sometimes I had to tell my manager, let me go home and raise my children so they don't climb through your window to rob you at night. So here it is. We have some of these things, and we have Shaquani here. I want her to make a comment on some of these things that these as a young person, this is what some of these single parents are saying. Somebody wrote, "Good night, Marcia. As we grieve for our sons and daughters, we must look past what is in front of us and ask why. Why now? As these events unfold, the citizens will cry out for protection, but the measures that will be implemented in the guise of protection will be the continuation of enslavement." Thank you so much for these comments that came through, and thank you, Mr. Murray. Let me just go to Shaquanie Hunt at this time. Shaquanie, it's a real pleasure to have you here with us on the Marcia Week Show this evening, and we are discussing tonight the increase in crime, increase in violence, increase in guns and gun usage in Barbados. And Shaquani, as a young person, I want to first ask you, when you heard about what happened at Nelson Street, you were the first person who sent that to me. You sent it to me about after 5 or after 4 that morning. What went through your mind, Shaquani? Let's be real. I want it to be as real and raw as possible. What went through your mind?
Marcia, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is check the news. So when I saw it, I was like,
Can
man,
we hear her, or is it just
wait,
me that's low?
can you
Okay.
hear?
Yeah, speak up a
It's
little for me. I think
okay.
probably speak up. Yeah.
I was saying when I first woke up, normally when I first wake up, I always go and check the news. And when I saw it, I was like, man, this can't be real. This has to be something from a movie because it seems so unrealistic. And then I started to read the comments and I saw more people posting. And then I sent it to you because only a couple days prior, we were discussing the march in Nelson Street. And it was like, how could this be? Like, it was very devastating and heartbreaking because I couldn't understand why now, why then. And it felt it felt extremely difficult to even imagine being in that vicinity at that time. Because when you think about it, we heard 3 people were shot, 8 injured. 8 people injured. That's a total of 11 people. That's basically a mass shooting. And in Barbados, we would have never heard about anything like that. That is something we hear on TV. We see on the news overseas. That is not something that happens in Barbados. So it is telling me that something is wrong. Something is wrong. Something is fundamentally wrong in the system. Something is fundamentally wrong in how the government is handling the situation because it doesn't seem like they're taking it seriously.
Before you go on to the government, I want to know, have you spoken to, because I believe, without giving away your age, I believe you're in your 20s, right? Am I right with
Yes,
that?
I am in my 20s.
Okay. So have you spoken to other young people in your 20s? So you are not far removed in terms of age from these guys, right?
Yes.
And from what's happening.
Mhm.
What is it that you guys are saying among yourselves? What are you saying?
Well, in my neighborhood, I recognize that a something happened, like a change happened, because I recognize a lot more young people, some that I didn't even know were linemen in my gap. They like built benches, dominoes tables. They asked my mom for a pack of dominoes. And I asked my mother and I asked them, how come are you guys like liming through here more? Because normally you wouldn't lime in this gap. They said too much shooting, people getting killed. They don't want to be involved in that. So being home is the safest place. They
Whoa,
identified that
pause
our
right
young
there. Pause,
safe
pause,
located.
pause right there. So listen, we have over 1,000, almost
Mhm.
1,100 people watching. Folks, did you hear what Shaquanie said? She's saying that some of the guys, they came and they begged some dominoes, they built a bench, and they start to move and start to lime. They're building basically a block, what we call a block.
Basically, yes. Technically,
Basically,
under the
they're
street light.
moving up to
Yes,
where you
under
live
the
and they're
street
building
light.
a block because they don't want to get involved in the shooting. Isn't that
No.
interesting? Tell me more about that.
it it is crazy because so a lot of the young people that I saw there, I didn't even know them. So some of them might be from other neighborhoods that they felt like, okay, here is safe. There's no guns, there's no violence. There's just honest liming where young people can gather, they can lime, talk foolishness, and play dominoes. When my mother asked me if I had a pack of dominoes to give them, I said, of course. But if dominoes are going to save them from getting shot, I can send 10 packs if I have them, if they need more, because when you compare being safe to being unsafe, one pack of dominoes make nothing. So our young people are trying, they're trying to stay safe. Not every young person is involved in something violent or something negative. There are some who are just trying to survive. I have
Mhm.
another young person who I know that he was having a hard time finding a job, and him and a friend decided to buy some cases of bottled water and started to go on the road and vend and become a vendor selling the water. He went out one day and his family asked him why he didn't go back out, and he said people getting shot, he's standing home, he ain't about that. So imagine, he felt so unsafe selling water at the side of the road to decide that he didn't want to go back out. I don't know
Oh,
if it was the
wow.
location he went, where he went, but and he's only 18. He felt that it was better to be poor and home than to be outside making money and somebody potentially rob him or shoot him out there. And I was like, when you have young people being afraid of going outside, being afraid of making honest money, we have a bigger problem than we're even thinking about, because we're we're only focusing a little bit on the people committing the crimes, the people dying. We're not even thinking about the people who are impacted by these crimes, and people are basically judging them because they're young and saying that, oh, you're one of the bad boys because you're home, because you're liming. But in reality, they're just looking for a chance. They're looking for opportunity to make something of themselves, but there's not a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, and I hope we're hearing, and I'm trying my best to listen to what you're saying because, someone would pass and see guys on the block, and we automatically, if we're going to be honest, we think certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and here you're saying that they themselves are afraid,
Yep.
and this is the
And
second
it's
time I'm hearing this.
And it's not the only, they're not the only group of young people that I heard this from. Another close by neighborhood to where I live, I sent out a message because I reached out to some people and I asked them, what is the word out there? Like, how do the young people over you, how are they feeling? And they told me it is very unsafe. The young people frightened. People are afraid of getting shot. Everybody's standing home. So
Mm.
it's not a thing to lame, because you could be innocently laming and get shot.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all the people who get hit by stray bullets. So imagine people are reconsidering going outside to blow off steam, just chat up with people in the neighborhood. They'd rather be inside, maybe playing a video game. I
Yes.
remember a time being younger where my parents would tell me go outside and run bow. At this point in time, you don't even want your child to be outside. This is
Because
a
I mean, a
different
6-year-old child was shot today.
exactly. Put that into perspective. Think about all the infants A, infants B, class one children. That could be any person's child. This is a
Yes.
different society. In the past, when I was growing up, I felt like a child would never have been shot.
Hmm. and you're in your 20s. So think about it.
I remember in 20s, it feels so strange. It even feels stranger for people to be shot in broad day. Like it sometimes it feels like a movie because before crime really happened at nighttime. But now we have people getting shot in the day, in the morning. So it is crazy because you felt safe in the morning because you never thought something like that would happen. But now you have to be careful walking the road, catching the van, just socializing.
Yeah, wow. It's I like the way you and I love the fact that you're in touch with young people. We're not just young people who are going to the university. Young people who are going to going off to college or university, but those who are unemployed, sitting on the block and just want to live. They don't want to die.
Yes.
And they too are scared.
Mhm.
And do you think Shaquani, with them feeling scared, do you think that that will cause them to want to get a gun to protect themselves?
I don't think so. I
Mm,
think they want to feel protected. So coming into a community where they know that everybody knows each other, everybody will come out and support. It is a close knit community that if something happens, somebody will shelter and let the person know, well, this happened in the neighborhood, so be careful. So I don't think that it would encourage them to get a gun. I think it may actually force them to be afraid to touch a gun because a lot of people when you see some of these criminals come in, they always say, oh, I didn't mean to shoot that person. So
mm,
imagine that person being charged for murder saying they didn't anticipate to shoot that particular person, they wanted to shoot somebody else. That means they weren't, I guess, trained. So I
mm,
think it would be unfair to say that they would want to look for a gun to protect themselves. They are more wanting to look for jobs because some of them did do skills training and polytechnic, but
yes.
they didn't get internships. So even though they did go and further their education, they're now in limbo trying to transition into a job. So that is always a difficult phase for any student coming out of a qualification, like graduating.
Hmm, hmm. Wow, very interesting. Mr. Murray, is there a question that you want to ask? You would like to ask
I, I,
Shaquani?
I'd
Yes.
like to, I'd like to, I
Hmm.
really appreciate the insight she's given, but I'd like to put, remember I talked about how some people had called me, they themselves who were afraid to go and go to society because of the widespread violent crime that's taking place. She referenced the same thing as against the younger group. What I think is we're reflecting is that the culture of crime in Barbados has changed. She kept reference like in a movie. In the same way that we have uh, copied habits of dress and music and food and drink from other societies. Remember, he said that crime is the biggest international business in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Those things also come with the guns, etc. So there's a carelessness and an indifference to the cost of human life or human safety that had not perfect. It was kind of limited, but now there's a more brazen, indifferent, bloody, bloodthirsty. If you read the history on criminology or what, and gangs or what, you wonder whether some of it not has to do with some of the activities that are happening in the gangs in relation to other gangs or whatever it is to say. So it's not in isolation. It's a
Yes.
mixture of events and forces at work. And the one last thing before she talked about the young men who were trained now can't get work. To me, they will be prime candidates for people who want to recruit from off the bat and put them into active crime because they have no alternative, they have no hope, no opportunities. They get frustrated. I might as well get some easy money or make money in the first place. That is the
Yeah.
danger.
Yes. Well, let me have Shaquani just make a quick comment to that. And then I'm going to bring in Mr. Robert Morris. Everybody know him as a trade unionist and very well known. He's an elder in our community. and has done a lot of community work, a lot of work with people, employees in this country, fighting on behalf of employees. And he's going to come and share his view on what is happening and to give us a real life success story in Barbados here.
Mhm.
He's going to give us some stories there. But Shaquani,
Yes.
before you leave us tonight, give us your final thoughts. Yes, thank you.
What I want everybody here to leave with is that if you have an opportunity to give a young person who is looking for a job honest word, give them the opportunity. If you know somebody looking to hire somebody, give them the opportunity. They will not come knowing all the knowledge, but try to work with them because they're trying, so we should try as well. Right now, Barbados is a very tender stage where we need to do what we can to help them so that everybody can stay safe because right now it is hard for everyone.
Yes. Thank you so much, Shaquani. I'm going to put you in the green room and you can stay as long as you can because I would like to bring yourself and Nigel back in for when we're going to we're going to ask people to call in. Okay. Thank you. Very well said, Shaquani, and continue the work that you're doing in the communities. Very good. Let me welcome this evening, the first time, Mr. Murray, the first time we have this gentleman here with us. He is none other than Robert Morris, and he is a former trade unionist and a historian. He's an author, I believe, and has contributed so much to this society, to this Barbadian society. Like Mr. Murray has lived here for many years, and I'm sure has something to say about what is happening to his beloved Barbados. Welcome to the Marcia Reed Show, Mr. Robert Morris.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Let me start by thanks again for the opportunity to be able to share. And I'd like to thank you personally for giving voice to the ordinary Barbadian and to issues that we will not normally get to discuss because of the way how Barbados is structured. And I want to ask your permission to go relatively wide in terms of the comments I want to make. I know you talked about a particular occasion, a period in my life when I had to get some help from certain individuals. But allow me to go a little further than that and to make the statement that, in my own view, quite frankly, the Barbados Labour Party, when I look at their most recent career control management of our society, our economy and society, when I look at the opportunities that they have had to manage, I recognize at least about 7 things that always predominate. One is there's a press monopoly. They control the press. And I know, for instance, that the major shareholders in the nation, One Caribbean Media, which bought the nation of Barbados, a lot of those persons, like Mr. Gollop, who was president of the Senate, and some other politicians whose names I will not call, are major shareholders of the nation. Harold Hoyt, of course, was a major shareholder, and nobody doubted what his political allegiance was. But I'm saying that I'm also aware, having seen the financial records of the nation when I used to negotiate against him, that the major shares were owned by senior Barbadian politicians. So they control not only the nation, but the OB also. And therefore, we have a situation where your major outlets for discussion, information, etc., is controlled by a political grouping, people with great influence in Barbados. And when you add to that, that once you control the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, and you have the GIS, and then you have a public information grouping set up recently. Unless we have opportunities, the one that you're giving us, basically, you're overawed and controlled by the flow of information coming from the same people who have to protect themselves and have no real interest in allowing open discussion in Barbados. That is why we have to be careful with things like cybercrime bills, because again, they have control over areas like cable and wireless. Cable and wireless has a lot to do with the passing of information. They can pick up the information as it comes through their system. And if the government controls them to some extent, it means that it has a basic monopoly of what we say. And therefore, if they go to cybercrime, they'll be able to target people and to get information on people to stop them from challenging. Now, when you do that, you're talking about moving away from what we know as democracy. And I therefore want to look at how this government and democracy has been, because I think they're anti-democratic. And therefore, I would explain what I'm saying here. First of all, they talk with the press monopoly. It is very clear, too, that whenever the Barbados Labour Party controls the government of Barbados, the rich get richer and the poor subside. And that is our experience. The rich get richer and the poor subside. So people like Mr. Maloney, for instance, I'm calling a name because it's always in the newspaper, etc., is getting richer and richer and richer. And at one time, the current Prime Minister had said that she would put 5 of her members of Parliament to take him to court. When he did that, I don't know what to call it, that obstruction on the highway going up by Coverley, and a young child died. And nothing happened with that at all. In fact, Mr. Maloney is also involved now with the Prime Minister. There's a case in the United States of America at the height of COVID. And that is winding its way through, and nobody has held her to blame for that. We did notice, of course, that her Minister of Health resigned, and we believe it must have had something to do with that, but the press is not going to talk about it. So it has to be a show like yours that will encourage people to come out and talk. So the rich get richer. And it's about friends and family. Wherever you look, friends and family in control. You have to belong to a particular grouping to be able to control hope. For instance, the whole hope saga is about that friends and family control. Or you put that the NIS, and then you hear the NIS is now in serious trouble. I'll tell you this. If you look at the history of voting in Barbados, you'll find that the Barbados Labour Party has always had the lowest voter turnout. The Democratic Labour Party wins when it gets the high voter turnout. So 1966, 80%. 1971, 82%. In county BLP, they won with 74 and then 72. Followed the BLP down to 1994, 61%. 99, 63%. 2003, 61%. So under the Barbados Labour Party, people don't turn out to vote. Low voter turnout. So let's go a little closer to home now. 1994, 61%, 1999, 63%, 2003, 61%. In 2018, they won with 60%, and then they did something that is heinous. In the middle of COVID, they hold an election and win with a 46% turnout. They are anti-democratic. They are anti-democratic. They don't want the mass of people to participate in democracy. They win when you get a low turnout because the Democrats really are the ones who have historically given a high turnout. 1966, 80%. 1971, 82%. 1986, and I was involved in that one, 77%. But let me go back to the crime scene now, because that's one of the characteristics of their administration.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the characteristics of their administration. Ask anybody what was the major thing that happened in Barbados in 1978. 1978.
Don't know. I wasn't here.
All right, they will tell you that a man was killed at Atlantic shores. The big question about who shot Pele.
Shot who? Pele?
Pele Paris. Victor
Pele.
Pele Paris. That was in 1978. By the time I ran in 1986, it was still out there in the domain. It is said that a deal went down about drugs and all sorts of things. And that drug thing followed right through. When I went to Parliament in 1986, by that time the Dems had carried back up the vote from the 74% of 76 and the 72%, the turnout over. In 86, we carried to 77. And that 77, that very strong 77, is part of building your democracy, bringing out people. We went all across Barbados, making sure that more people voted than they had for some time. And certainly better than 74 of 76 and 72 of 81. But drugs was all around Barbados at the time. And then I was a candidate, Gall Hill in my constituency.
What year was you a candidate? In the 80s?
Hello?
You were a candidate in the 80s?
In 1986.
Yes, okay.
I ran against Mr. St. John, who was the Prime Minister of the day. And I ran against him with reason. With reason. And it was clear to me, as I said before, that as I saw it under the Labour Party administration, things like drugs started to impact young people. So here I was, trying to see what I could do to alleviate the problem. I walked about with the people from Gall Hill, the young people, tried to get them involved in sports, etc. And then the Club Rondo, when the owner died, it was a place of entertainment, dances, yes, and shows and that sort of thing. I wanted to get that purchased so that we could do community crafts, skills, teaching the young people, turn them away from that life of drugs. But I lost then in the coming election because I had 2 terms, and then after that I lost in 1994 because I won back in 91, and then I know what happened in 94. I was going to win 2 against Duncan Carter, but the NDP took a young man from in my own constituency and asked him to cut out the votes, so that although Carter was not with the NDP, Richie Haynes wanted that kind of alliance because they wanted me out of Parliament. So, from the time the BIP came in, the whole idea of using that place as a recreation center for young people and for training center went out. It was renovated, and friends and family were able to use it for shops, for commercial things. And now you can see Gall Hill is burning again. Gall Hill is burning again. Young people shooting down one another. Gall Hill and Silver Hill, same hot spots that they were, are coming back up under a Barbados Labour Party administration. Same hot spots coming back under these people. So let me go again, because I'm saying to you that as far as I'm concerned, there are 7 things that characterize a Barbados Labour Party administration. 1 is press monopoly. 2, the rich get richer. 3,
wait,
friends
don't go
and
so
family.
far. Pause.
Don't go
Press
so fast.
monopoly,
All
and
right.
then the number
Press
2.
monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
The rich get richer.
Yeah.
And that tells you what happens to the poor. Poor get
Mm-hmm.
poor. It's about friends and family.
Yes.
There's a low voter participation, which is encouraged by them because they win when people don't come out. When the Dems don't come out, they win, and they win handsomely. And I'll show you, I can back that up. I can show you that, as I said, using the two latest opportunities. In 2008, the Dems had 64% turnout, which is standard in the Caribbean, basically, in the 60s. 2013, it went down to 62. And it went lower in 2018, and they came in. Do you know that within 4 years in COVID, they held an election, and the turnout was 46%. And they know they win with low turnout. So I am saying that they knew that once it was a low turnout, COVID people will be scared to come out and vote. They knew that they would do the 30-0 twice. That was planned. That was not serendipitous or happenstance. They understand that they win when there's a low turnout. That's a historical fact. I have all the data. I've done all the checking, and nobody can challenge that at all. So, as I said, the high crime rate is the
That
next
is
one.
number 5. Number 5 is high crime rate.
High crime rate with them
Yeah.
all the time. Nothing new at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing new. And 6, the church is silent.
Okay.
Especially what I call the established church. They don't get involved in these things. They do not pull down or look at the government. If we had a Dudas Coke operation in Barbados, they won't say a word against Coke. They won't say a word against Dudas. They tend to side with the administration in. And the last thing I said would be external debt. Whenever the Barbados party is in, it is IMF, Tom Adams and all of them. Now you're back to IMF and it's heavy debt, borrowing all the time. And that borrowing is going to cripple this country because while they're borrowing, they're depending on only one thing, that's tourism. They depend on tourism. Agriculture is no longer what it used to be. And there's nothing else, basically. So basically, we are into another situation when they go, leaving all the debt and all the crime, the horrendous crime behind us. The Democratic Labour Party will have to try its best to get a high voter turnout to take over, but they also have to know that they're going to be taking up all of these problems that have been left behind.
Yes. Before you go on, Mr. Morris, Dave, there is a graph just to substantiate what Mr. Morris is saying about the crime, because when I was doing my research, and I remember, I think people would have remembered Mr. Murray and the others when I brought that information to people listening. And I can tell you that people were shocked to hear me say, Dave, do we have that bar chart? Let's just bring it up and we're going to show them what Mr. Morris is saying. People, take a look at this. Some of you have seen it already. I would have shown you. Let's just move that banner. And if you look here, look here, guys. Dave, can you show 2019? Use your cursor to show 2019. Okay?
Yes, Marcy. Marcy, this hurts. This really hurts.
Yes, this is 2019. Okay? I want you to look, guys, look at 2018. Remember, so when they came into office.
I'm looking there. Yes.
Yes. And they came into office, this is where it was, where the cursor is there, with little hand. That's 2018. Right. Look at that bar in 2019. It almost doubled. It went up 92%. This is to substantiate what Mr. Morris is saying. The crime rate, the homicides in Barbados went up by 90-something, 92% or 96%. I don't have my notes here, but it almost doubled after they came in. And look at 2020 right there. But when we had the We had Mr. Morris. We had the what's it now? Well, we had the injection thing, the COVID thing, where it's coming in, and so on
Mhm.
and so forth, right?
Right, right,
And
right.
2023, I'm learning that this was just after they tried the peace program when the guys had just gotten the money. So the graph is telling us the story when they
It
got the
is.
money. And
It
based on
is.
when I speak with ex-gang members, they said, okay, well, we got the money and we started to buy new guns and more guns. And that's what's going to happen, what you see happening in 2024, where now you're going to see it's going to double and triple and keep, because we're at 38 now, right? And
Yes.
we're not at the end of the year yet. But back to
Right.
you. I just wanted people to see this, to see that something literally happened, Mr. Morris, between 2018 and 2019. And the last comment I want to say is that when I speak with the guys, I talk with the guys on the street, and they tell me that they understood that once this government was coming in, especially they called the name of of our leader, and they said if that leader is in, they know that things going to go easy. They know people coming from jail, and that's what they told me. I'm not making it up. So you are so correct. Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Let me say this. Former Commissioner Dutton, highly respected sleuth, crime sleuth, as I understand it, was employed by the government. And I was privileged to read in the newspaper his writings where he identified all of the hotspots and where the marijuana was being grown, etc. Now, if you can do that, clearly the next step as a sleuth and giving advice to a government is how you stop that kind of operation from exploding in the way that it has. And my question is Mr. Dawkins still employed doing that work? I've never heard he's being terminated. Is he still employed doing that work? And what information has he been feeding to the government? And what has the government been doing about it? You take a young man like Mr. Lane, who comes up with this idea that you can play games
Mm.
with criminals. Don't take the guns. And Frandel Stewart asked, well, how do you have a truce without handing in the guns? How do you have a truce but the guns are still out there? And these guns are not pistols. The kinds of guns that we're seeing are not made in Barbados. They're not made in the Caribbean. So there's a link between external forces in Barbados. And the only way those guns can get here is by aircraft or seacraft. And certainly our borders are controlled by agencies that have responsibility to protect our borders, to protect us. Something very wrong is going on in the state of Barbados. And the only responsibility for the safety of our citizens, the only responsibility is held by the state. And the state is controlled by politicians. And politicians belong to a political party. So let us understand. Let us understand. 38 dead. And we're in September. So we do not know, because sometimes the market for the things that they use go up as you go into the Christmas season. We're hoping there aren't any more deaths because I don't know that we are able to take any more. It's devastating. And clearly, it has got out of hand. This is Barbados. This is Barbados. And we remember Jamaica. Remember Jamaica. We went and Jamaica pulled back from there. We see Haiti. And we've seen that the Calypso, president of Haiti, has now been charged with being involved with criminals, gangs, etc. In Barbados, we are saying that there's nobody connected with that criminality, nobody in politics. Is that what we're saying? Are we saying that they don't know? But we do see them in the pictures with people. We see them hobnobbing with people. So what are we to assume from that hobnobbing? We see them hobnobbing. We see them turn up at state openings of parliament. And we hear about how a phone call could be sent and certain things happen. The police have to back off. All that we are hearing about.
Actually, I don't know if Dave can find it. If he's able, there was a picture that with our prime minister, and the allegation is that she's sandwiched between two known criminals, and these two men that they were invited to parliament. I don't know if he can show it, but as we're talking, I'm sure he will find it and he will put it up. But it's rather, it's right here. It's right here. This
Well,
is what.
there I'm seeing those beautiful pictures. I'm seeing those beautiful pictures with all the smiles and everything else. And I would like to even wonder if somebody would conceive that would happen with Frandel Stewart. That picture would be taken with Frandel Stewart. If somebody would conceive that picture would happen with Errol Barrow, it is beyond my imagination that could happen. And it's beyond my imagination that people don't understand what that symbol sends, what that signal sends to Barbados. And I'm concerned, very concerned about it, because as I said, Barbadians are saying nothing. The church is as quiet as a mouse. You've heard about a church mouse, a dormouse, or whatever. The church is quiet. The Anglican church is silent. And we get back then to Lucille Beard. I mentioned Lucille.
Yes.
I do not know what Lucille is doing these days. I have not heard from her. I have not seen her anywhere. But I know that she put her group together and came up to Gall Hill to talk to these young people, to try to turn them around. And I remember once getting up in the morning only to hear that the young fella was trying to turn him around, called Joker. That was his nickname. I can't tell you what his correct name is. Don't remember now. But he was killed in Silver Sands. He went to some fact. The next day, on the front page, Joker was dead. So when you thought that was a face, and that we're going to pass that, it is clear we've gone even further than that. Now you have to ask another question now. We have decided that one of our future areas of wealth creation is something called medical marijuana. I have not heard any report put out in the public domain in terms of where that is going. I know the young lady who was dealing with it left. She's now in government, and she's now coming to run in Christchurch South. But she has to give us some reason why she gave up that job with the medical marijuana. She has to report on how much marijuana was planted in Barbados, what was exported to where, and whether anything went on to the local market. Because if you're producing marijuana and you can't sell it in the external market because, let's say, the federal government, the United States of America, has laws about whether you can sell in there or not, or in the different states, then if people turn their fields cultivate that product and it's not selling externally, it will sell locally.
Yeah.
So we need to ask if that has turned out in a negative way and is leading to 38 murders, mostly young men. And there's no doubt that they seem to be involved with drugs. It is clear that they're starting with marijuana and then they're going on to the harder stuff. So I think, quite frankly, that we're in a serious position in Barbados. I really think so. I think that we're in a very serious position because where we have now a kind of apathy, people not showing the kind of democratic drive to want to take part in political activity. Unfortunately, the Democratic Labour Party has been having some difficulties. And I could not understand why they were splitting, because anytime you split, you're reducing your capacity to win. And anytime you split, as I said, the polls show here that the Barbados Labour Party always win when there's a low turnout.
Yes.
That's historical. So if you come into the Democratic Labour Party and you're breaking it down into oldsters versus newsters, etc., it means that you're giving the vote to the Barbados Labour Party. It means that is your intention. And I would wonder whether that is accidental, coincidental, or otherwise.
Yes.
Because anytime you pull down the rate of participation in the electoral process, historically, from the time we have been keeping these kind of statistics from 1966, the Barbados Labour Party wins where there's a low poll. The Democratic Labour Party wins when there's a high poll. And I know because I was part of that high poll in 1986. I was part of that to bring back the Democratic Labour Party from being on the outside for a while. And that was at the same time, as I said, when there was this spike in crime. 1978 and right through, a spike in crime. And now we're seeing the same spike in crime again. So I think Democratic Labour Party people better take their national duty, their patriotism to bear, get together to save us from this administration.
Yes, yes. Very, very well said. I mean, I had called you to talk about Gall Hill, and we got Mr. Murray. And listen, you guys are so full of knowledge. Mr. Murray, any short comment before we want to let everybody know that the lines are open, and we're talking tonight about increase in crime and violence and the gun-related crimes as well in Barbados. So if you have any comment to make on that, you can give us a call at 246-236-7000. You have a question for Mr. Morris. He's new, so the new guest here. You can feel free to call in and to ask him that. But let's hear a quick comment, and because we have a caller. Go right ahead, Mr. Murray.
Yes, I just like to welcome Bobby, as I will call him, to the program.
Thank you very much.
We go back a long way. And he made some very interesting observations about the Barbados Labour Party. If I were still in their corner, if I hadn't left them, I'd be interested to debate some of the observations with you. But what I really would like you to comment on, how do you describe the state of trade unionism in Barbados, where the Ministry of Labour, the trade union seems to be, except for Unity Workers Union, seems to be not even in bed, seem to have absconded, reneged, abandoned their duty, and you've seen all kinds of strange battles being fought, which we thought we had won since the 50s, 60s, 70s, are being fought all over again as regards the conditions of people who work in Barbados. How would you characterize the state of trade unionism in Barbados?
Right. So let me ask him to hold the answer to that question, because I have a caller calling from overseas. and waiting on the line. And then don't forget Mr. Morris, what the question is, okay? But let's just
I
hear the
remember.
caller, and then we're going to get back, okay?
Okay.
All right, go right ahead, Mr. Millington. Oops.
Yes, good night, Marcia. I think that you're privileged to have three wise men in your midst. What I call to say is, the Caribbean has to be very careful as it relates to endorsing music networks, without calling a name, who are aligned in various territories of the Caribbean to criminal alliances. And what Barbados is not just great because of a prime minister or a world-renowned wealthy music artist, whether it be whoever it be, without calling a name. But all it would take is the aligning of, for example, an extremely wealthy music artist to a person who is known to promote gangsterism in the Caribbean, and the splurge, or I should say the momentum, that's the better word, of trying to bring back, or to bring back the youth from gangsterism can be just dashed through the door in 1, 2, 3. So I don't think we have not even started to look at, because Barbados has had for over 20, going 30 years, every blessed day from morning to night on the ZR vans or on the minibuses, lyricism, gangsterism that is highly unfiltered in some cases.
Yes.
Lyricism that the school children can recite, sometimes even better than their ABC. So you must understand that when you now re-invite or reignite toxic gangsterism, that it has wealthy and stuff, that Caribbean leaders have to watch that. That is not the new trend now to send the youth further into violence.
Yes, and you're specifically talking about you're talking about music and some of that gangster culture that comes with music, and we're seeing. I will say there's a resurgence, of course, of Vibes Cartel, and I know some people. I say this because some people are their gods of a life and all those kinds of things. But I understand what you're saying. As somebody who was born in Jamaica, I appreciate culture, I appreciate music, but the reality is that some of this kind of stuff what comes with it is a lot of violence and gangsterism. So I'm in total agreement with you. Thank you, caller.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's ask Mr. Morris. Mr.
Yes.
Morris, is there
Yes,
anything
Marcia.
you want to say on that? Let's give him the floor first. He's our guest. Go right ahead.
The request is a difficult one because my policy has always been that as a former trade unionist, deputy general secretary, vice president of the Caribbean Congress of Labor, I would not want to be critical of the labor movement because I have a lot of respect for the importance of labor. After all, I was Frank Walker's personal assistant, so that put me in a particular relationship with him, and also deputy general secretary. And I would say that I have noticed a couple of changes that I would want to speak to. When I left, when I reached the age of retirement, I left the staff of the Barbados Workers Union. I started a process of recruitment where it was clear to me that the future of the labor movement related to things like productivity bargaining, where the trade union had to develop the competence to sit down and talk to the employer, understanding economics, and understanding balance sheets, understanding that you can only share what you create. So looking at productivity, and we did productivity agreements with all the banks. We did productivity agreement with the sugar industry. We did it with the hotel sector, etc. It seems to me that the focus has changed, and I understand that there are 5 lawyers on the staff of the Barbados Workers Union now. Not 5 economists, 5 lawyers. Now, you would only put 5 lawyers on a trade union staff if you believe that you're moving from a voluntary system to a legalistic system. That's the only reason they could think that we are planning to move away from voluntarism, which is based on government being separate and distinct and laws being separate and distinct from collective agreements, etc. Even things like recognition, we don't have any laws about recognition on our statute book. We have conventions, we have agreements that if you have X% plus of a number of the staff that you can get recognition. That's not so for the rest of the Caribbean, several Caribbean countries. You have to have a certain percent of the bargaining unit that is also defined in law before you can get recognition. So I don't understand why we have so many lawyers on staff. I believe that we are in an environment where the emphasis should be more on the economics, and therefore the people you want will be economists and people who are trained in finance and accounting and so on. But that's a comment I would make. I don't want to get into anything further on that. I am hoping that when I see the news, and I do read everything that there is about going on in terms of the labor atmosphere. The union just had an annual delegates conference, and I remember the days where when you had an annual delegates conference, it would fill up the newspapers. The first thing you would see is the people who came to sit down, the dignitaries who were up in the front seat and the different divisions at the back. I haven't seen any pictures like that. I haven't seen any reports coming out of the annual delegates conference. Again, that would be something that would be in the media. So those are matters of concern to me, because I think that part of democracy is having a vibrant trade union in the private sector.
Yes.
And since the reality is that the Barbados Workers Union was almost like a federation of trade unions in a sense, that used to be a bulwark against wealth and even against the political parties too. But I'm not too sure that that is what we have now, because one of the things we did was to some extent, surrender the space of the Barbados Workers Union to something called C2SAB. And C2SAB is really just a talk shop now.
Mm-hmm.
It does not make any impact in the industrial arena at all. So I think we're not in the same space. And as far as I'm concerned, if you don't have strong trade unions, you cannot have democracy.
Yes.
If you do not have trade unions that will stand in the gap for the working class people, you can't have a strong and a vibrant democracy. So my thing is that if we're not careful, we may be moving away from democracy even as we go towards what we call a Republican status.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful because we go down for these tithes and these titles, but go beyond the tithes and the titles in terms of what is actually happening. What's happening on the ground? How are people feeling? Is it that one voice is more powerful than another voice?
Yes.
And if the voice of labor is anyway controlled, you don't have democracy anymore. You can have a semblance of it, but you need a strong and vibrant group that is able to look to government and say to that government, thus far and no further.
Yes.
We will stand in the gap for the people, some of them who are not even in trade unions, and therefore cannot pay for representation because they may be unwaged, they might not be unsalaried, etc., but they still have to be looked after. So I'm thinking that perhaps we don't feel that sort of certainty as we would have felt back in the days when I knew that there was a very vibrant trade union movement that was not a respecter of persons because of who they are.
Mhm.
They were not a respecter of positions. They challenged. Whether Mr. Adams or whoever, you challenged. Whether it was strong men, whether it was Mr. Sandiford, you challenged. Once you felt that your rights were being in any way disturbed, not necessarily taken away, but even disturbed, you felt
Mhm.
that you would want to challenge. And I say this, trade unions have, generally speaking, not accepted walking hand with the Washington consensus. But it seems to me clear that that is where we are. We are happy to be in the NMA. We're happy to go back and borrow. We're happy to borrow from the agencies that control that consensus, that Washington consensus. And I think that that is a far cry away from the radicalism that we had in the trade union movement coming through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I think we've moved away from that now. And we are now, I think, getting on almost as though we're an arm of the state. That's
Yes,
serious business.
that's actually what's happening at this moment. Well, again, I'm going. Thank you so much, Mr. Morris, for that very in-depth answer to that question. Well, we want to remind everyone that the lines are opened up, and we're asking people to call in. We are primarily talking about the increase in crime and violence, and but Mr. Morris came tonight and put everything in a context where he showed us that within under the BLP government that there were seven major things that normally happen, and one of them, it's a high crime rate, and I was able to show you on the graph what exactly happened, or it almost doubled in 2019, 1 year after they came into office. So it's a phenomenon. It's something to really look at. That I find is quite interesting. And again, I'm asking people to call in 246-236-7000 to give your thoughts on anything that you've heard discussed this evening. But let me bring Nigel in this conversation here. Nigel, we're hearing about this high crime rate whenever the BLP is in office. Is this something that you've observed? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree? Do you have any examples? Any comments on it?
Of course, I do, in the sense that I will say that Mr. Morris has given us a very precise and informative discussion on the history of politics and elections in Barbados. And I agree with him. I agree with him because also seeing your graph that you showed us earlier, it coincides with what Mr. Morris has shared with us. But I would like this time, with your permission, Marcia, to ask Mr. Morris two questions. Part one, can I do that now?
Yes, you can do it, and then once a call comes in, then we are going to give way to the caller. Okay, but go right ahead because we don't have any callers at this time.
Welcome, Mr. Morris. It's a pleasure seeing you and hearing of your wisdom. Now, I have a number of concerns. Given your historical analysis on elections and so on, do you think there is a need to enshrine in the Constitution the right or power of recall? And added to that, given the level of abuse of power and so on in Barbados, uh, do you think we, the citizens, should be forced to endure this type of governance until the forthcoming general election? What can we do? I mean, we are going into a republic now, and we are on our own. So how do we negotiate or resolve those issues Can you give me some guidance on that?
Let me start with the second one. I would like to think that we all agree that outside of party politics in the modern world, we are not living in a microcosm of Barbados. We are not living in a microcosm in the Caribbean. Outside of party politics, it is very difficult to ensure that the citizens are able to deal with the major power groups within the society. But that then depends on the type of parties that you have, how efficient and how effective they are. And the issue I think that we are facing right now, quite frankly, is that we have seen splinter parties, splinter groups coming up. But unfortunately, the one solid party that seemed to provide an alternative to the Barbados Labour Party is the Democratic Labour Party. And unfortunately, that has been going through difficulties. So I think that the first thing that has to happen is that party has to get itself in order. I think the two-party system is going to be better than depending on citizens. I think it's very difficult to create in any society the kind of citizen power outside of the party system, quite frankly. It's very, very difficult to coalesce. Because when you look at that citizenry, it can be broken down into so many different factions. It'd be difficult to see which are the factions that you will be putting in contest against, for instance, the existing political party. That is not going to walk away. It's not going to break up easily. It's been around a long time and it's going to reformulate itself all the time. So I think what you need is citizen awareness, but I think the party system is still the best mechanism that we can use. And I think that the Democratic Labour Party has to arouse from the slumber it has gone into. I think it made some errors, and therefore I think it has to get back out there and to claim the confidence of the people, bring them out and get them voting for you, because there's a high turnout. That's the only way they're going to win and be able to. And they have to come, when they come to you, they have to come with ideas, workable ideas. They must come with a plan of where they want to go. And therefore, they must get the quality persons coming out of the university, whatever, wherever they're coming from, they must come with the skills. And they then have to be able to work with other interest groups, because that's another thing in Barbados that I find that we are not as advanced in terms of developing, in terms of how we proceed as an independent and now country and now republic. We have to get the citizens not just happy about crop over and dance and song and so on, but we must get some very strong citizenship groups that are willing to be the backbone of our society. So that's one comment I would want to make. In terms of the power of recall, I think it will be, at this stage, quite frankly, at this stage in time, I believe the Constitution Commission has done its work, and I believe they're probably about to announce at some time. And my only question is whether they will put it out there to the people and then have an election, or whether they will agree right now that they have control, that this is the constitution that they want from what they got from the report, etc. And then once that is in place, then move to an election. I don't think they will risk doing an election before they put the Constitution in place, because I think people are waiting to hear what this Constitution is, what are the things that will be involved in it, what changes there will be from the status quo. And I don't think a right to a right given power of recall is going to be in there. I haven't heard any discussion about it at the different sessions that were held. So I don't think that this administration is the kind that will want to give that kind of power to the masses of people at all. I don't think so. So that's my brief answer to the two questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Morris. Once again, I don't know people what because Mr. Morris is here. We're getting intimidated. You don't want to call in. Call in 1-246-236-7000. We've created this for you so that we can actually. Let me hear from. Do we still have Shaquanie there? She is the youth among us all. Although we all feel young, don't we? Shaquanie, are you still there?
I am still here.
Yes. And I'm sure you would have heard Mr. Morris speaking about that generally there is a spike in crime and violence whenever this BLP is in power. He was putting everything in context, that it's not unusual. I was able to show the graph that showed 90-something% increase at exactly 1 year. And the numbers, they can't lie. The numbers are the numbers, right? What are your thoughts about that? As a young person, I don't know if you've lived that long to know the history, but what are your thoughts about all of this, Shaquanie?
Well, in my opinion, the graph doesn't lie. That is the first thing. When we saw the graph on the screen just now, it was very clear that when the JLP was in government, the crime rate was lower.
It's a fact.
Okay. What it shows us is also that when this government came in, how quickly the crime rate increased. And I remember at that time, we were constantly being told, oh, crime is going down. There's nothing to worry about. I don't know if everybody else remembered when that happened, when we could see killings increasing, but we were being told, just relax. There's nothing to worry about. Crime is going down. And in my mind, at that time, I wondered, how can crime be going down when I saw a lot more killings, a lot more shootings, a lot more stabbings at that time? So the math was not mathing, but this graph shows a clear depiction of how intensely the crime rate increased and then what it looks like currently. And unfortunately, it looks like we're going to match 2019 or even surpass it, which is horrible because that should have been the indicator for the government to know that they need to do something.
Yes. Well, there is a caller. There is a caller. Hold your thoughts there, Ms. Hunt. We're going to come back to you. But let's hear the caller. Good night, caller.
Hello. Good night to you, Marcia, and to your guest.
Can you hear him?
Yes.
You are hearing. Okay, go right ahead.
Yes. I just heard Brother Morris comments regarding the question. The question that was asked about recall and so on. Mm-hmm. And I want to disagree. I think that Barbadians don't want to have more of the same. The two parties are pretty much similar in terms of how things have been going. We are at a juncture. We are at a turning point. We want to give people the power. We can't continue to go on with the same old. We want change. The structure, the system needs to be changed. And if you, as a senior, Mr. Morris, you are a part of the structure, the DEMS, and I want you to seriously talk to them regarding our restructure. And Barbadians want to see that change, and that's what Mr. Newton was referring to. You can't have the situation right now is untenable. How do you have to wait? We can certainly shut down the country and be, have civil disobedience and bring it to the point where. But who's going to take over. So we are trusting you all with the experience of running the country and so on, but you have to be prepared to do things differently. It cannot be the same. There's a whole set of stuff, and I think you all have to get serious about changing the structure and how you want to run this country in the interest of the people. There's too much suffering and too much of the same old, same old. You cannot just be changing administrations to go just for the sake of doing that and having more of the same. There's a whole set of structures that need to be changed, and that's what you all need to be focusing on. Okay?
Yeah, don't go caller. Don't go caller.
Okay.
Mr. Did you hear him? Well, Mr. Morris, can you comment on what he just said? Can you have anything to say to him?
I've heard the general comment made about having to do a whole different set of things. The same old, same old. And that comment, while being useful, we have to focus, to me, on issues of morality. I think that is fundamental, because at the basis of whether or not you have a high crime rate or not is a value system that says that crime will not be encouraged. Quite frankly, that's where you start. And once you see a society that is willing to move away from that basic principle, that at the core of civilization, at the core of having a society that is truly democratic, there has to be a value system that abhors the negative. Crime is negative, murder is negative, and that puts at its center a number of positive things that you want to see done. And what we're finding is that not only is crime going down, but educational standards are falling too.
Yes.
So it says that we have to think seriously again about the society in which my grandchildren are going to be grown up in. And that's serious business. That's very serious business.
That's fine.
It seems to me.
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
Look, that's fine. That's fine what you're saying, and the morality regarding the morality and stuff like that, and dealing with the crime and yes, that's current and that's what we. But there are bigger fundamental changes that are required, and perhaps part of what is causing the crime is the fact that the standard of living for Barbadians is not good. And there's an abuse of money. There's an abuse of finance in the country that we've never seen before. You need to speak to stuff like that. You need to reassure people that there'll be proper management of finance so that that it is not spent in ways that do not benefit the masses. That's the kind of change I'm talking about. This is going beyond just morality and so on. Yeah, we definitely need that. And candidate selection that will address that. But it has to go further than that. That's not far enough. We are a pivotal point, and you need to get that in your head, sir, all due respect. But you need to start thinking beyond just that conventional thinking about solving those things out. We have people out there who are not partisan and who are not on the side of a party that are ready to give the support to a party that make the kind of changes I'm talking about.
And what are the changes you're talking about? You are saying that what Nigel said, to be able to recall MPs and so on. Those are some of the changes.
That's one side, and also financial management. We have a situation where there's no accountability. We don't even know what revenue is being collected from the sewage and garbage tax. People are being taxed all across the spectrum. There's so many collection of revenue, and where is that going? How is that revenue being spent? You have a whole set of people who are hired and paid exorbitant salaries, and people look, Brother Morris, we are citizens. I'm a senior citizen just like you, and I have to build this country, and look at how seniors are being treated. Their pensions are not coming. Look, there's so much. I want to put together something, Marcia, and I'll come back to you on another show. If you want to invite Brother Morris on, and I'll take him on. I'll make suggestions regarding the kind of changes and see whether we can get him on board with this. Because I suspect that he's a part of the advisory committee for this new party with Mr. Thorne. I like what I'm seeing Mr. Thorne doing. He seems to have good moral standings. Let's take it beyond that and let's bring the type of change that is needed. This is a pivotal point, and we need to take this opportunity and make those changes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much for the comments.
You're welcome.
Actually, you know, I share your views. I really do. Yes, we have to talk about values, etc. But competence is one of the issues that we have to look at when we are running a government. We're running an administration, and that administration has not only to run itself, but it has then to police and monitor the private sector. Then there is so much room for things to go wrong, because you have your public institutions, the national insurance scheme, you have all the different ministries, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, all of those institutions have to be managed and managed properly. So as you said, you have to have your financial administration, you have to have people who are skilled and who are professional. And I think that is one of our problems that we are failing in, that we are not, and nowadays, quite frankly, we're going outside of Barbados to bring in people. It seems to me like that if we don't watch ourselves, although we have a university that's been functioning in the Caribbean for a very long time, that we want to be bringing people from Africa and everywhere else to hold down positions. So we have to ask ourselves very seriously, where are we failing so significantly that we do not have the top administration that we should have? And still at the same time, quite frankly, on my Facebook page, I have former administrators, people who might not be still there, who show all the skills and the knowledge, etc., but they're no longer being employed because of something called age. And I really believe that sometimes we should be able to go for persons who used to work at the University of West Indies, people who used to be working in government, who have maintained the character and the skills and the intellect, and make sure that we get them to help us to get back where we have to be again. I think you're right. The whole question of skills, ability will go along with integrity.
Yes. Thank you so much. There we have a caller. Caller, go right ahead, please. Caller, go right ahead, please.
Blessings to everyone on the show, on my favorite show tonight.
Thank you for calling. Thank you so much.
The real problem about this crime level is a lot of people is not being favorably considered. I mean, job opportunities, even getting welfare, etc. And even like if to go further studies and etc. So the more high the cost limit goes up, people find that life get more difficult. So the blocks, as you say, will be opportunities going for young fellas. So that's how everything started built from there, because I see that the government should more engage in opportunities like who got job creations, maybe welfare, and put more money in the welfare so that the welfare going to go certain like programs like educational schemes so that all the young people going to get engaged. Because when you recheck it, it's like the poor people is getting suffered all the way around.
Yes.
Financially or with the education. And job wise also. Because when you recheck it, it's who you know. That's where you're getting opportunities to get jobs. Probably going to get attached to running some educational course and etc. So basically, is people, the government want to really retract and reset about things more differently and more favorable for the young people generally. Don't care what party that you're for, they should be able to cater for all the young people.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, caller. Let me hear probably Shaquanie. on this. He's talking about the youth, and we didn't get back to you. Thank you so much, Scholar. Thank you. And Jobs.
Yes, thank you for so much. While he was speaking, I was thinking about the young people, and it crossed my mind that if you count back 5 years to when COVID started, young people who would be charged for murders who are currently 16 was roughly 11, now going into secondary school, now going into second farm. Their education would have been impacted drastically by online learning. And I'm not saying that online learning cannot be helpful, but being pushed into a system where parents had to learn, teachers had to learn, students had to learn, children transitioning from seeing teachers and students sitting in the classroom all day just dropped into learning online, and then some parents had to go work, so they were now charged with logging in on their own, paying attention. Some children just went outside. So if you look back to that scenario and you really look at the numbers, a lot of those young people who are being charged for murder would have been impacted by COVID and that period of being home doing online learning. And a study needs to be done on that, because that would have impacted a whole generation. Because a lot of the people who are being charged are barely over 20, if not, if some of them aren't even 20. We are seeing a lot of 16-year-olds, a lot of 17-year-olds, a lot of 19-year-olds that are now leaving school, possibly kicked out, and people are asking, why so many young people? But we put them in a situation where they couldn't succeed because they were set up to fail. When you had children at homes doing homeschool, you should have never been pushing up children just to get them out of a grade.
Hmm.
You should be analyzing if the children actually learned anything, and if they didn't, don't send them up. We have this thing that a child can't stop down, they must go up. I know that some schools made teachers give children marks even though they didn't do any work. You can't put zero on the report, meaning that they had to give them a one or a two for the subject. That impacted that child's life. Why are they getting grades if they didn't do anything? We need to take the education system seriously and really look at what happened to those kids, because if they look back at a lot of those children who would have graduated in that period and came out of the system, where are they currently? Yes, some children would have survived because they would have had a household that could nurture that, but some children did not have that household. They did not have that family support because the parents probably had to work, so there was nobody to help them focus at home, monitor the children. I know some parents who had to work and do online and watch children and logging. So it was a difficult time period. And I don't think that those children should have just transitioned out of school, not leaving with anything, because it is difficult. How you let a child pass through a whole school system during COVID and just keep sending them up. You created a problem. So now you have a generation who possibly cannot read, cannot write well, just leaving the school system, and then you're saying, oh, the crime rate is high, we don't know what to do. You know what to do. You know who you need to target in terms of assessing this generation. You know how you can help them, and you need to go back and reach out to those children, because you let them out of the system and put them in a worse situation, so now they're going into a new system, prison. You imagine that we have 16-year-olds going to prison. It's even worse because we have 6-year-olds getting shot. How does that parent navigate speaking to the child about what happened to them? How does that child go to school? School is tomorrow. When the child's friends realize that that is their friend that got shot, how is that going to impact that class, that school? We need to start connecting the dots a lot quicker, because we are damaging these children when we do not step up to the plate, when we do not intervene early enough. And it's not good enough to say, this is a troubled child. Children can be troubled, but as an adult, as the people in charge, we need to set the example, we need to set the timelines, and we need to recognize where we failed, come up with a solution, and work towards getting this generation back on track on getting jobs, back in track on getting re-educated, because that is what we have to do with them. We
Yeah.
dropped the ball with them, so we need to pick it back up.
But let me just say that you have spoken so well, because I'm here, and you mentioned education, and you were able to tie also what is happening to our young people now, and what happened to us 5 6 years ago with the pandemic. It's quite interesting, but I want us to, before we close, we only have 4 minutes. Let's stay a little bit on education here, since we brought it up, as we're looking at some of the causes of crime and crime, the increase of everything to do with crime and so on. I am getting messages here that there are schools, Mr. Murray, that are not yet completed, that there are schools that cannot get started. In fact, there are parents, I know one school in particular, Christchurch Foundation, that parents are getting letters to say that the school is not ready. I don't know if anybody else if you're a parent, you're listening, and you have gotten a letter as well, please let us know. If you don't want to call in, we don't have the time for calling in, but you can message me at 236-7000, WhatsApp me, and let me know if you are one of those that have gotten a letter. I know that there are people who have gone to the schools to pray at the gates. And in fact, I am hearing that, let me just look at the note that I'm getting here from Miss Rose Corbin, which we're going to have to get her in. Hopefully tomorrow she can come in, but she's saying that we went to pray at the gates this evening on both St. George Secondary and Primary. So those are the two schools that they prayed at. Some external groundwork, example, clearing bush at the secondary school, was going on. At the primary, it appeared like construction workmen were still on the job when they left around 5:30, and debris as well as heavy-duty equipment on the compound. When is school starting again? How long were the schools closed for the summer holidays? And you talked, Shaquani, about the importance of education, and that we might now be reaping some of the neglect that has been given to the area of education. Let me just hear Mr. Murray give a short, comment on that. We're 2 minutes away from closing,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to go around to everybody. They will have a half a minute to close. Go ahead, Mr. Murray.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcia. Education used to be one of Barbados' pride exports even. We stood tall for a long, long time to educate. That was a prime area of pride and achievement, and dominance and achievement. So therefore, if you want to find out what's really happening in Barbados, look at education. Education is the best indicator of the degradation that Barbados has gone through. We have been opening schools and starting terms for countless generations. Occasionally, you have a hiccup there, but right now it is something as though we started to start from 2 years ago. But I think what Bobby made reference state about the Washington Consensus and the IMF. I think what we're seeing is a further manifestation of the austerity, the harshness of the IMF system, their strictures. I think part of the problem why there's so much lateness is that there's not money in the system, because when you get a budget for education, that is not paid out to the ministry at one time. That comes in at different times of the year, depending on how the government revenue performs or what the other choice it has to be. I think we are late because a lot of people don't have money to finance the repairs. And second thing, I think this Minister of Education is the worst thing Barbados ever had at education. I think she's an absolute disaster, and that she crystallizes all that is wrong with Barbados. And I think until that situation is rectified, we will keep going further and further downhill in an area that we used to export, we used to sell to the world. That was our pride achievement. Education, also public administration, all the areas of competence and distinction have gone right down to nothing.
Yes. Very, very interesting point. I see Mr. I'm sorry about that. Yes. I see Mr. Are you speaking, Mr. Morris? Your mic is muted if you're speaking.
Could I get a comment here?
Yes, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, education is a very sensitive area, very, very sensitive area, because as my colleagues are saying, basically, it is central. It is central to all of the things that we are discussing. In my own view, if the education system was performing at its optimum, my assumption is that you will not have the kind of negatives that we're getting in society in terms of crime and violence, etc. Because the persons who are committing the crime and the violence at the level of commission, the ones who are doing the crimes,
Yeah.
I don't think they're your top students. I don't think I've seen anything suggesting that your better students are attracted to getting an
You might have one or two. You might
AK-47.
have one or two in there.
You know, it seems to me that there are people who have not been benefiting from the system. All the millions of dollars that we're spending, it is not doing enough to lift up a group of our people. And I think that is one of the serious things that we have to address. Because those who are doing well are doing fantastically well. They're getting all the degrees, they're going on to do second and third degrees, they're getting jobs, they're transitioning to the middle class and the upper class, etc. But I agree with my colleagues, really. It's the ones at the bottom, the ones that are not benefiting from the system. And you can bet that most of them are coming from the lower stratum of our society. Use that term without being pejorative or anything like that. But the people in the housing areas, that's Deacons, Parkinson Field, etc., etc. A lot of these chaps are not getting the kind of care in the classroom. Because I can say this, in my own experience, back in the 60s and 70s, you know, Harrison College and there was Parkinson too. But Parkinson students did extremely well. I can point my fingers at so many people who came up from Parkinson and were able to do extremely well in society. They were able to be educated and to translate that education into jobs and into credibility as citizens of our country. But now, quite frankly, there are some problem schools where you can point out this is the kind of criminal activity you're getting, the kind of behaviors sometimes that are captured on videos in certain schools, etc. So I think we have to zero focus on the schools and to make sure that we follow persons who seem to have strayed a bit. We have to get them into tight positions of control. We have to manage them, help them to manage their lives, help sometimes to go down there to the level where we manage the household. Take on that household and give the guidance and the support that is necessary. Now, my own view is this, that people like Grantley Adams and people like Errol Barra understood that there would always be families and people that would fall through the cracks because all of us are not be gifted in terms of academics or intellect for that matter. But are we not paying enough attention to ensuring that those persons who are most exposed to the negatives are given the support that is necessary? To me, that is fundamental. Who are these guys that are shooting people and so on and being shot? Are they your better students? Or are they ones who have not done well? And if they have not done well, why? And they will take them out of the school and say, we're not going to let you go to the drugs trade and the guns, etc. But we will find an alternative for you to put you on the straight and narrow. It's just sometimes it's just that break between when you leave school until you get 25 or so that you need some support. You need some support. You need some kind of system that takes you on hand and don't leave you then to the environment. Because if you're in that environment, you're going to be impacted. We have to be able to identify them because our institutions have to be able to get information from school. Who are your danger persons? Who are the ones that you're saying give you trouble? Can we hold them right away before they get there? And
Yes.
whatever we have to do, whatever systems you have to put up in order to encourage those people away from that path that they're going into, I think that's what we should do. We should be preemptive. We should be looking at schools and say, this guy looks like he will be going such a thing. Don't let that happen. I believe that's our responsibility.
Yes.
That's our
Thank you.
responsibility. Parents and the teachers and so on, the parents to be able to go to teachers and the school and say, my grandson or my son, I don't like what's happening. And the state should take on that responsibility. I believe that's very important. It's the kind of democracy that we understand, social democracy. This is not an elitist society for very, very rich people. We have to look after those persons who are going to the cracks. And we have to take them out of the cracks before they get into the cracks. That's my own view.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Morris. We are 10:06, so I'm going to go to Mr. All these names are at this hour. Mr. Newton, half a minute, literally half a minute, and then Shaquanie, as the youngest, you will have the final word on the show tonight, and we close. Go ahead, Mr. The final word. Yes, Mr. Newton on
Yes,
crime.
yes. It is clear that our moral ecology has been debated, and there is an absence or a deterioration in our moral compass, and that is why we are where we are today. And it has brought us to the point where I can say that we are now at destiny's crossroads. And what we do from here on will determine how successful we are in moving beyond the crossroads. And that in itself would depend upon the kind of vision we have of ourselves and of our nation, of our future. So I would urge all Barbadians, think seriously about your vision of the future and do whatever you can to help us rebuild our moral ecology.
Thank you so much, Mr. Newton. Ms. Hunt, can you give us your final thoughts in half a minute?
Thank you very much again, Marcia. Something that I really wanted to say, and I was hoping you came back to me. I saw a lot of people saying that the Minister of Education should be fired. I don't think that she should be fired because on this show we speak a lot about accountability and taking up accountability for our actions. She was a part of the problem and helped create it, and I think that she needs to be a part of the solution and help fix it. Because when children do something wrong, we ask them to take accountability and the next steps to improve the matter. And if you're going to be here and saying that everything is okay, we as Barbadians can see that everything is not okay. And we are asking you to take accountability and help us make the system better because you have the job. So why not do it? It does not make sense wasting the position that you have because if others had the ability to do what you could do, we would want to make a difference.
Yes. Thank you so much, Miss Hunt. And at this point, I want to thank Nigel Newton and for being on here tonight. He was a former. He worked with the name is slipping me. It's getting late, right? with the I'm mixing it up, Nigel. Where did you work again with the youth?
Oh, I'm a retired probation officer.
Retired probation officer. Thank you. Want to thank you so much. And Mr. Murray, a regular panelist, and who did a fantastic presentation this evening. And he's worked in all different parts of government, actually, under the BLV government. And we had with us Mr. Bobby Morris, former trade unionist, historian, author, researcher, you name it. And we're so honored to have had him. And we had Shaquanie Hunte, who is the spokesperson on youth, issues of youth under the Democratic Labour Party. So let me just thank everybody for being on with us this evening. Quite interesting. Don't forget that we have coming up on Sunday, it is going to be our walkthrough. We're walking. It's a solemn walk that is happening on Sunday. We are outside of the Freedom Park, right in front of the Old Empire Theater. And from there, we are going to go past the Methodist Church and go past Homicide, go into Nelson Street, Wellington Street, and then back to Nelson Street. And remember, we're wearing white and we're bringing something from home. We're going into the community, and back in the day, we'd always bring something. So you bring something. You might not have a non-perishable. You might have a breadfruit. Bring something to share with the people in Nelson Street, all right, and in Wellington Street. That's what is happening this weekend. And we had almost 1,400 of you watching live tonight. And what I'm saying is that at least, even if half of us can come down and fill that place with light and love and compassion, why don't we do that? I'm inviting you specifically, Mr. Morris. I would love for you to come and walk with us. I'm inviting you, Shaquanie. I'm inviting Mr. Murray. And I'm inviting Mr. Newton and everybody on here, right? That they come and they walk with us and bring something. Let's bring healing to the communities. And let's go back to Nelson Street, Wellington Street. We're not afraid. We're going to walk through there with the police, of course, and all will be well. So thank you all very, very much. And over to Dave. Dave? Nothing as yet? Okay, we just wanted to close out. Yes.
Barbados used to be a place of safety and sanctuary. Not so more. Not so anymore. How many firearm shootings have we had for the year? How many did we have last year? The lives of our young men are being destroyed through guns, through violence. The principal of Dodds in July of last year said that 4 of the young men who had been killed in the last 6 weeks had passed through his hands at Dodds. I believe John King will be able to confirm that. 4 of the young men shot and killed in the previous 6 weeks had passed through Dodds. But do you think that you have an attorney general who will be listening to that voice? I'm not saying he's an idiot. I am saying that everything shows us that he does not care about what happens in his constituency or St. John or St. Joseph or in any one of them.
God, don't give up on me yet. I know I'm not your best bet, but I'm trying. Don't give up on me yet. Ooh, and God, don't leave me here alone. I know I need to grow still, and I'm trying. Don't leave me here alone. I know I've come so far, got so far to go. And with this brand new scars and this broken heart, it's hard to really know if there's a reason and if I'll ever see it. But I wanna believe it. Don't give up on me yet. Ooh, don't give up on me yet, God. Oh, don't give up on me, God. Would you give up on me? Don't give up on me, God. Oh, don't give up on me, God. I know I worry sometimes. Don't give up on me, God. I know I doubt you. Don't give up on me yet. Oh, yeah. Don't give up on me, God. Don't give up on me, God. I know sometimes I'm ungrateful. Sometimes I'm ungrateful. Don't give up on me, God. Whoa, I know sometimes I doubt you, God.
I pray a blessing for Barbados right now, God, as we go tonight. May we sleep well and know that we are in his care. Amen. God bless you all. Bye-bye.